Welcome back to In Session. I'm Vinny Politan. The Jim Leyritz DUI manslaughter trial took a huge turn this morning when the judge tossed out one of the counts. Judge Gold decided there was not enough evidence to prosecute DUI manslaughter based on impairment. But the second charge of DUI manslaughter based on blood alcohol content will, in fact, go to the jury. Closing arguments will begin in less than an hour. We'll be in the courtroom live when that happens. But first, let's bring in the attorney who represented the victim's estate. Sam Coffey joins us from Fort Lauderdale. Sam, great to see you again.
Good afternoon, Vinny. How are you?
Good. Want to get your reaction to what the judge did this morning, tossing the one count for DUI manslaughter based on the impairment theory.
Yes, sir. Well, the judge gets to look at the evidence, see if the prosecution met their burden of proof. I didn't follow the argument. I wasn't in the courtroom, but the judge made a decision that he believed the state didn't carry their burden of proof as to the one count, so he directed a verdict as to that count. It's very common in cases like this where you have multiple counts for the court to determine which counts go to the jury and which ones can be decided as the court as a matter of law, and that's what he did in this case. He streamlined the proceedings, so now the jury will only have one count to deliberate on.
All right, now, Sam, here's something that's happened. A lot of viewers have been watching this case, and we've been getting a lot of emails, and a lot of them are a little confused about the relationship between the criminal case and the civil case. Here's one of the questions that Mark sent us. Is there a caveat in the settlement agreement that retracts any monetary settlement if Leyritz is acquitted? Now, where I come from, the criminal case has nothing really to do with the civil case, especially when there's a settlement. The settlement, it's done and over. But I'll have you answer that question just to verify that there's no caveat that anything happens to the civil settlement based on the results of this criminal case.
Sure, you're absolutely correct. You hit the nail on the head. And what we got to look at is the burden of the proof. In the criminal case, it's the beyond the exclusion of any reasonable doubt versus the civil case, which is the preponderance of the evidence. So regardless of what a jury does in this case, if they find reasonable doubt and he's acquitted or they convict him, the civil case was settled, and Mr. Leyritz will have to meet his financial obligations to this family to pay them $100,000 in the future in a structured settlement beginning in April of next year. If he defaults, we get a punitive damages judgment that he can't escape in bankruptcy. We get interest as well as we get attorney fees. So no obligations will be, there's no caveat. He won't escape the payments in the future in this case.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about, though. Where's the money going to come from? We've been speaking to a lot of people, and everyone says, Jim Leyritz, he made some money during his career, but it's all poof, gone. He's divorced. He's had to hire attorneys for for custody of his kids. He's got to hire attorneys for this case, and he hasn't played in several years. He has no access to income now. Nobody's given him a job. We know about the pension. But isn't that pension off limits? I mean, you can't go after the pension down in Florida, can you?
No, you can't. You can't go after the pension nationally. That's a federal law. But you got to understand, there's settlement documents in place signed by Mr. Leyritz where he agrees to cooperate, and he's agreed to pledge the pension to satisfy the judgment in this case.
He did?
Satisfy
Okay.
the obligation in this case. Absolutely.
That's the big question that a lot of folks had, myself included, was whether or not Jim Leyritz did the right thing and said, I am going to pay that money. I know I've got this pension. How about that pension? Do we know what types of numbers Jim Leyritz is going to be able to get?
Well, he's a 10-year man. He played for more than 10 years for MLB, Major League Baseball, so the MLB pension, he's maxed out the number of dollars per year, and it depends upon what date he begins to collect. He's eligible at age 40. If he waits to 45, he gets more. I'm not sure what the COLAs are, the cost of living adjustments, but I think he's probably eligible for a payment between $4,000 and $5,000 a month at 45 or 50 years of age, depending on when he elects to begin receiving his pension. So it certainly has an income stream. It certainly is protected, but there are settlement documents in place where Jim Leyritz agrees to send money to his civil lawyer, and the civil lawyer has agreed through these settlement documents to send the money to the personal representative of the estate of Freddie Veach for the benefit of the survivors, the two little kids and the surviving husband. It's all in writing, and if he defaults, we get a judgment for punitive damages. The importance of that is that even with bankruptcy, if he were to file bankruptcy, you can't escape a judgment for punitive damages. That's in the federal bankruptcy code. And on top of that, there's a right to earn interest. And if he's delinquent in payment obligations, he's going to owe more over the course of time. He can't escape this for the rest of his life.
I'll tell you what, Sam, you know what's happening right now at home as people listen to you recite the law and your incredible grasp of it? Everyone's saying, man, I want to get this guy Coffey on my side if I got to sue somebody because he's going to get me, my due money. So here's the question now I have for you. Your clients, they're in the courtroom today. Jordan Veach is there. And, I mean, the way things are going, one count tossed already. I mean, there's a chance that Jim Leyritz could walk out of that courtroom with no convictions. There's a possibility. How will Jordan Veach and the family handle that if it happens?
They'll accept it. I mean, they wanted this case decided by a jury in civil circuit court here in Broward County. They're seeking justice, and they believe in the court system. I believe in the court system. I believe in the deliberative process, and they'll accept what the jury returns in this case.
Finally, I have another question for you, and I want you to take a listen because Jim Leyritz's attorneys, we asked them, because we spoke to you once before, and I got the feeling that you were skeptical about Jim Leyritz really caring, that Jim Leyritz really being concerned about the victim, Fredia Veach, and the family in this case. Well, here's what his attorney had to say about what was on Jim Leyritz's mind as all this is going on.
There was a question, obviously, that Mr. Coffey had raised about the authenticity of the letter, who wrote it, why it was written, what was the motive. This happened right after the accident. This was a decision entirely made by Jim Leyritz. Obviously, he was involved in something traumatic. There was a death involved in the accident, and there was a family that was mourning. It just as easily could have been Jim's, and Jim had an opportunity to reflect upon what happened. He's a spiritual man, and he wrote the letter. He wrote it entirely himself.
So, Sam, are you buying it now that maybe Jim Leyritz did, in fact, write that letter himself to the family?
Two things, Vinny. I settled the case, the civil case, in April 1st of a year ago. It took David Bogenschutz, and that lawyer you just had the soundbite from, over a year to approve the form of the settlement documents because they had a concern about the impact upon the criminal trial that you're following right now. Jim Leyritz lawyered up the moment after this accident. He got lawyers on the phone right away, and certainly that note was crafted, reviewed, and gone over multiple times by those attorneys before Jim Leyritz signed and sent it out. Sure, he feels bad that he killed somebody, but that note was very, very carefully crafted with the help of attorneys, I believe.
All right, Sam Coffey, the attorney for the Veach estate, thanks so much for joining us, and I know the Veach family is in good hands with you, Sam.
Thank you, sir.
All right.